Coming up, we take a look at Michelle Wu's historical inauguration.
And we will hear former Mayor Kim Janey's thoughts on the momentous event. All that and more on WEBN's Political Pulse.
Welcome back to Political Pulse. I'm Jillian Kay.
And I'm Rishi Sanyal.
We begin with the top political stories in Massachusetts. There's a new Boston mayor in office, and not only is she a woman, she's a woman of color. Michelle Wu was sworn into office at City Hall today alongside her husband and 2 sons.
We must do the big and the small. Every streetlight, every pothole, every park, every classroom lays the foundation for greater change.
Usually the mayoral inauguration would take place in January. However, with the sudden departure of former Mayor Marty Walsh back in March of this year, the City Council agreed November would be a better time to welcome in a new leader. In her acceptance speech, Wu said, quote, "In this moment, we'll tackle our biggest challenges by getting the small things right, by getting City Hall out of City Hall and into our neighborhoods." Wu promises to ensure housing affordability, close the racial wealth gap, and focus on economic justice, such as advocating for worker rights.
Next, we go to reporter Peyton Kavanaugh on Kim Janey's farewell address last week.
Tonight at Hibernian Hall in Roxbury, Acting Mayor Kim Janey gave her farewell address, looking back on the accomplishments of her administration and looking forward to the inauguration of Michelle Wu.
Acting Mayor Kim Janey reflected on the bittersweet nature of the transition of power.
You know, it is a little sad. I not just love our city, I loved being mayor, I loved working with an amazing team, I loved connecting with residents all across our city and doing the important work that really makes a difference.
In her address, Janey mentioned her work as mayor in combating the pandemic, highlighting the fact that Boston is one of the most vaccinated big cities in America.
Kim Janey came into office during a very tough time. As Mayor Walsh was exiting to go to Washington, we were in the height of the pandemic.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley says the accomplishments of Janey's administration set Wu up for success as Boston's next mayor.
She's a bridge. She's created an incredible foundation, and we're grateful for her exemplary leadership during this pandemic. And she's leaving Michelle with an incredible foundation.
Michelle Wu looks forward to working as Boston's next mayor with the impact Janey has left.
Her team and the administration have been wonderful about ensuring we have a clear set of briefings, and we're working hard to make sure it's a smooth transition.
From Boston, I'm Peyton Kavanaugh, WEBN.
The State House has been closed for more than 600 days, making it the only unopened state capitol in North America. The historic landmark, which usually welcomes around 100,000 visitors a year, shut its door at the start of the pandemic. Now, more than 20 months later, both the museum and government offices remain closed. State legislators say they have 2 committees studying how to successfully reopen while still keeping employees and visitors safe. State Senator Diana DiZoglio shared why the building's reopening has faced many setbacks.
It is imperative that the Massachusetts State House be safely reopened to the general public as a matter of accessibility.
As of right now, there is no timetable for reopening. The only certainty is that all members and staff must be fully vaccinated before returning to work.
The state Senate will debate a new bill next week that could secure mental health care for Massachusetts residents. The bill aims to dedicate $122 million to recruiting behavioral professionals. It will also create a portal to ease individuals' transitions from emergencies to long-term care.
We're in a crisis with mental health care prior to COVID. Since COVID, it's gotten worse, and I believe that the Senate and the legislature and the state must seize the moment and take action.
The main goal of this bill is to increase accessibility and bring mental health care up to the level of the state's healthcare system as at.
There are new developments this week in an ongoing case involving a former Boston College student who was accused of encouraging her boyfriend to commit suicide. During In Young Yu and Alexander Ertula's 2-month relationship, the couple exchanged an average of 1,250 text messages a day. A majority of these messages were Yu encouraging Ertula to harm himself. Eventually, Ertula jumped from the Renaissance parking garage in Roxbury. At that time, a Suffolk County jury indicted Yu on an involuntary manslaughter charge. Now, nearly 2 years later, the Supreme Judicial Court has agreed to take up the case. Oral arguments are scheduled to begin February 2nd.
The MBTA opening 2 new stations on the Green Line's B branch Monday morning. The new stations merge 4 stations into making commute times faster for Green Line commuters. St. Paul Street and BU West have been combined into 1 new station, and Babcock and Armory Street have also been combined. The new stations, positioned right along Boston University campus, and feature longer and more updated platforms.
This is the beginning for us of an accelerated approach to investing in the system, to modernizing the system, to making the system more reliable and making it safer.
With the MBTA being a divisive factor in the mayoral race, there may be more changes like these coming soon.
Voting by mail is in danger of becoming a thing of the past. That is, unless college students have something to say about it. Secretary of the Commonwealth William Galvin told the coalition of college voters on Saturday to urge, quote, urge their local lawmakers to expand the right to vote. The state Senate passed a bill on October 6 that would permanently allow mail-in voting throughout Massachusetts. However, this act has yet to be voted on in the state's House of Representatives. Although the House passed its own bill on June 10th, making mail-in voting a permanent option, this rule only applies to semi-annual state elections, primaries, and municipals that fall on that same day. The Senate now insists that amendments be made to that bill.
Curley School in Jamaica Plains announced switching to remote learning for 10 days due to a COVID outbreak. The school requested that the state's Department of Education count the 10 days towards their 180-day requirements, but the state only approved 4 days. The state says the schools should have been acted to quickly contain the outbreak. We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
Stay with us.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Queen is just my everything.
His smile did it. His smile, his eyes, his knowledge. My landlord, he decided that he wanted me to move based on the fact that I was transgender. Let's just respect people in everyday life for just being human.
Did you know bicyclists are often injured by vehicle doors opening into their path? To prevent hitting a cyclist with a car door, drivers should use their right hand to open the door, which forces them to look back over their shoulders so they can see people approaching on bicycles. Passengers should do the same using their left hands in case someone is riding a bicycle to the right of the vehicle. This simple safety procedure is an important step in keeping our roads safe. Remember, scan the street for wheels and feet.
Welcome back to Political Pulse. Here are tonight's top national politics stories. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon was indicted by a federal jury on Friday. He was charged with contempt of Congress after refusing to answer the House committee's questions about the January 6th Capitol insurrection. Bannon is the first to ever be prosecuted for contempt of Congress when executive privilege was asserted. Past cases involved defendants whose testimonies were asked for regarding their government service. Yet Bannon left his White House job in 2017. This was well before the House committee's period of interest. Bannon refused to appear before a deposition and produce documents requested by the committee. He now faces 2 counts of contempt of Congress. If convicted, Bannon could face up to a year in prison and a fine of up to $100,000. Bannon appeared for the first time in federal court on Monday and will be called in again on Thursday.
Today, President Biden visited New Hampshire to advertise new $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. He signed into law yesterday. Biden visited a bridge in Woodstock to discuss how the legislation would improve roads, rails, lines, and bridges. The bill also expanded high-speed internet access and takes steps towards addressing climate change. New Hampshire will be a crucial state for Biden and the Democrats turning in next year's in midterm elections. Current Democrat Senator Maggie Hassan is up for re-election in 2022 and is considered to be one of the most vulnerable incumbents for the Democrats.
Our White House correspondent Steph Trendell has more on what's been going on in the Biden administration this week. Steph?
The White House is teaming up with some of our most beloved superheroes to promote COVID-19 vaccinations among children ages 5 to 11. The administration is working alongside DC Comics and Warner Media to get kids excited about getting vaccinated. The goal of the collaboration is to provide incentive for children to get the shot. First Lady Jill Biden traveled to Texas Children's Hospital in Houston on Sunday with Surgeon General Vivek Murthy to check out some of the vaccine clinics. Kids who receive the vaccine will get bandages featuring their favorite DC Comics characters, as well as some coloring and activity books. White House advisors said that as of last Wednesday, nearly 1 million kids ages 5 to 11 have already been vaccinated, but they expect this number to increase. President Biden signed an executive order on Monday addressing what he referred to as a crisis of violence against Native Americans. At the White House's first Tribal Leaders Summit, the president said federal officials are going to work with tribal leaders to enhance public safety. Approximately 1,500 American Indian and Alaskan Native missing persons have been recorded across the United States. For years, thousands of Indigenous women have been reported missing or killed, but families and activists say the cases are often disregarded by law enforcement. This has forced them to resort to social media campaigns and protests to bring attention to the issue. The order states that the Department of Justice has 240 days to come up with an approach to address the law enforcement issues and combat this violence against Native Americans. Inflation is at a 30-year high, and our wallets are feeling it. White House Economic Council Director Brian Dees addressed these concerns about the stark rise in prices just before the holidays. Dees stressed the importance of passing the Build Back Better bill, saying it will address costs in childcare, housing, and healthcare. Many have criticized the economy under the Biden administration. According to a recent ABC News Washington Post poll, 70% of Americans say the economy is in bad shape, and just over half say they disapprove of Biden's handling of the economy. Many are also hopeful of Biden's efforts to help bring back the economy post-pandemic. The poll also said that 63% of people support Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure bill that was signed into law on Monday. That's all for the White House. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Steph. Since the start of 2019, more than 100 federal prison workers have been arrested, convicted, or sentenced to prison. The Associated Press launched a Federal Bureau of Prison Investigations with an annual budget of nearly $8 billion. This study was prompted by years of abuse, corruption, and neglect of accused misconduct. Federal prison workers account for less than 1/3 of the department's workforce, yet 2/3 of the criminal cases against Justice Department personnel have involved federal prison workers. These statistics are causing advocates to push the Biden administration to enact change and focus on fixing the Bureau.
Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy has announced that he will not seek re-election in 2022. Leahy is one of the most senior members of the Senate at 81 years old and has served as senator for nearly 50 years. He's Vermont's longest-serving member of Congress and the fourth longest-serving senator in the United States history. Democrats are now scrambling to find a replacement for his seat as they hope to retain control of the now 50-50 state. All of For Nations Politics will be right back after this commercial break. So stick with us.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Queen is just my everything.
His smile did it. His smile, his eyes, his knowledge. My landlord, he decided that he wanted me to move based on the fact that I was transgender. Let's just respect people in everyday life for just being human.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back. Here's what's happening internationally. The COP26 summit wrapped up its negotiations in Glasgow, Scotland over the weekend. After 2 weeks, world leaders signed off on a new climate change agreement. It was certainly an event of firsts. It was the first time nations updated their plans to limit emissions since the Paris Agreement in 2015. U.S. climate envoy John Kerry also said, quote, "It was the first time China and the United States have stood up to the two biggest emitters in the world and said, we're going to work together to accelerate the reduction." Not to mention, it was the United States' first summit back in 4 years. In a final compromise, countries agreed to begin a 2-year work plan to decide how climate finance will increase to meet the needs of vulnerable nations in the future. As of right now, climate adaptation projects will receive double funding by 2025.
There are an estimated 2,000 people stuck in the border celebrating Belarus from Poland. Many of these migrants are from the Middle East and Asia who are attempting to cross road into Poland and other European countries. As colder temperatures hit the area, there are concerns of hypothermia from human rights groups. Belarus authoritarian Alexander Lukashenko has caused many diplomatic issues in Eastern Europe and yet has taken action on this problem.
For more coverage on what's happening overseas, Ryan Nelson is joining us in studio. Ryan, what do you have for us?
For the first time in over a decade, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of the late Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi, made a public appearance. This sudden re-entry into the public eye is controversial, seeing as the purpose was to register as a presidential candidate for the country's December election. His entry into this race, however, is contested by many Libyan factions, and the rules of the election have yet to be set. There are other complications for Gaddafi's run for president. In 2015, in Libya's capital, he was tried in absentia and sentenced to death. He was charged with war crimes, including killing protesters during the 2011 revolt that resulted in his father's unseating and subsequent death. He is also wanted by international courts for similar charges. This past Sunday, the Taliban held a military parade in the middle of Afghan's capital city of Kabul. The event was held for the graduation of over 250 newly trained Taliban soldiers. The parade featured seized American military vehicles and weapons, the majority of which were supplied to the once American-backed government. According to a report released last year by Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction, the U.S. government transferred over $28 billion worth of defense articles and services to the Afghan government from 2002 to 2017. 2017. And while much of this military weaponry and equipment was destroyed or transferred in the September withdrawal, some now lies in the hands of the Taliban. Japan's former Princess Mako and her husband, Kei Komuro, are moving to the United States. In a dramatic tear from the royal family, former Princess Mako gave up her title when she married Commoner Komuro almost a month ago. Their relationship has been one marked by controversy and widespread public disapproval. The couple have been engaged since 2017 and planned to marry in 2018, but a financial scandal involving Komuro's mother was met with such hysteria from the tabloids they were forced to postpone. The former princess even rejected the $1 million payout from the government she was entitled to in hopes to prevent even more negative public response. The two are expected to move to New York City, where Komuro will be employed as a law clerk with hopes to take the New York State Bar exam and become a lawyer. That's all for international news. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Ryan. And I have to say, I'm rooting for former Princess Mako and her new husband. Now, on another note, Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte will not be running for vice president in the May 2022 election. Instead, he's campaigning for senator. This announcement ends speculation that Duterte would run against his own daughter, Sara Duterte Carpio. She was expected to succeed her father as president and was leading opinion polls. However, Duterte Carpio shocked the public by choosing to run for the VP position instead, especially since her father can no longer vie for the presidential office. Presidential spokesman Harry Roque spoke on the relationship, saying, quote, "They will never run again against each other. They will never fight each other for any position." The deadline for campaign intentions was Monday, so the Duterte's decisions are set in stone.
Residents of Fairborn, Wales are being told to move out of town. The small village is located on the west coast of Wales and is being hit hard by rising sea levels due to climate change. The government says it can only keep protecting the village for another 40 years. They predict that the year 2054 there will be no chance in saving the town. This is requiring residents to move elsewhere with little to no guidance from Welsh authorities. Villagers are frustrated with the government and are told when to leave Fairborn.
That's all for our show tonight. Thank you for watching WEBN's Political Pulse. I'm Jillian Kay.
And I'm Rishi Sanyal. And have a good night, everyone.